For decades, the Roswell crash has been buried beneath government denials, broken memories, and fading newsprint. Some call it a myth, others a cover-up. But one thing is certain, there has always been something missing. That final, unshakable proof. Until now. It started not with a headline, but a photograph, one hidden away for decades, sealed in an envelope and forgotten in the corner of a dusty garage. At first glance, it looked like nothing, just another yellowed relic from the summer of 1947. But when the light hit it right, it changed everything, because inside that old envelope was more than just a snapshot. It was a window into a moment someone never meant for the world to see. THEPHELDNEXEST Claire Ames wasn't expecting to find history. She was just cleaning out her late grandfather's garage. But as she pulled down a box labeled Summer 47, something strange caught her eye, a manila envelope sealed with cracked red wax. Taped to the front, a return line in faded ink, RAAFPIO, Roswell Army Airfield. Her grandfather, who always claimed he just stocked shelves in the military, had never said much about 1947, but this envelope suggested otherwise. Inside was a single photographic print, wrapped in parchment, thick and heavy in her hands. The edges were deckled. The emulsion shimmered faintly under the desk lamp. It looked old, but not damaged, not like something that had spent 70 years in a box. She held it up to the light. Her breath caught. A scorched desert. Harsh shadows. Men in uniform crouched over strange debris. Not inside a hangar, like the staged, weather balloon photos we've all seen. This was outdoors, pure, raw, unfiltered. Shreds of metallic material sprawled across the sand. Twisted rods that didn't look like balsa. And one dark, curled fragment that gleamed with a strange inner glow. It didn't behave like paper. It didn't look like anything she recognized. At the bottom of the print, faint and almost erased by time, were the words, JL 1947. Claire's hands trembled. She didn't call a collector. She didn't post online. She called a university historian. Days later, the photo lay under a light table in a conservation lab. Paper experts examined it in silence. The emulsion matched late 1940s military prints. No signs of forgery, no inkjet artifacts, no digital trickery. Under magnification, even the pressure marks showed that the negative had been laid directly onto the photo paper. Standard for a base darkroom, not a reproduction. The photo, they agreed, was original. The deeper they looked, the stranger things became. One piece of metal curled back, not torn, but recoiling, not passive, like it was trying to remember its shape. Another piece had faint, symmetrical marks, geometric symbols that couldn't be matched to any known language. Under 40x zoom, these shapes became more deliberate. Not scratches, not damaged writing. A requisition slip found in the envelope dated just days after the official press release confirmed that the base's photo section had requested new 4Y5 plates, fixatives, trays. Someone had gone into the field. Someone had processed this. And someone had written in faded pencil on the print's edge, field set keep for ref, not office, not staged. A set, to be kept, referenced but never released. This wasn't rehearsal. This wasn't reconstruction. This was the thing itself, captured before the cover story began. But the real shock wasn't in the material. It was in the figure that appeared in the frame. The figure eintachi fram. At first, it was just a man standing upright between two kneeling soldiers. Nothing unusual. Probably another airman. But when technicians zoomed in, the image began to unravel. Unlike the others, the figure wore no visible insignia. The soldiers bore recognizable Roswell-era patches. But this man, if it was a man, had a plain dark uniform, no rank, no name, no stitching. His boots were odd too, no laces, just smooth, seamless material like molded rubber or something else. His hands dangled at his sides. The fingers seemed too long and too thin, almost skeletal, when measured against the kneeling soldier beside him. Then came the face. At first, it was just shadow beneath a cap. But enhanced lighting revealed proportions that didn't make sense. The head was too large. The eyes, unnaturally wide and glossy. There was no clear nose ridge, just a flat slope. The mouth, if it existed at all, was a faint suggestion. "That's not a shadow," one technician muttered. "That's structure." The room went quiet. Eyewitness accounts from 1947, Jesse Marcel, Glenn Dennis, anonymous medics, had all described the same thing: small bodies with large heads, dark eyes, no clear mouths. For decades, skeptics had waved it off. Now, those descriptions stared back in photographic detail. Skeptics still had their arguments. Maybe it was a blurred soldier, maybe strange light, a bad angle, odd exposure. But when the figure's outline was compared to others in the photo, the ratios were unmistakably off. The head-to-body ratio was closer to 1:4, far from the human average of 107. Even with distortion, those dimensions shouldn't exist. Claire suddenly remembered something her grandfather used to say when she was a child. A warning. "If you ever find the picture, don't keep it, burn it." Back then, she'd laughed. Now she understood. He wasn't scared of what the wreckage meant. He was scared of the figure standing next to it, present, aware, watching. Because that face wasn't peeking from the edge of the frame. It was centered, perfectly placed between two men, like someone had wanted it captured. Was it an accident? Or was the figure impossible to leave out? One spectral scan changed everything. In the creature's eyes, 2 points of light reflected back. Not from the sun, not from the field, from something else. Something not in this world. As shocking as the figure was, the photograph's most persistent mystery lay scattered across the sand. The debris. At first glance, the fragments looked like ordinary wreckage. Thin metal strips, rods, curled material. But as the lab zoomed in, it became clear this wasn't balloon foil. This wasn't wood. This wasn't anything we were supposed to understand. The first anomaly was the metal itself. It was impossibly thin, catching light like a film of cigarette ash. But along its torn edge, the material didn't split or crinkle like tin. Instead, it curled back on itself, tight, resilient, as if trying to return to its original form. One analyst marked a portion where the strip flexed across 2 frames of the photograph, recoiling mid-bend. "That's not passive," he said. "That's elastic memory." Witnesses had said the same thing. Jesse Marcel told reporters in later interviews that the material was weightless, flexible, and couldn't be scratched. Rancher Mac Brazil had tried to burn pieces. They wouldn't catch. Others claimed the metal would fold like cloth, then spring back untouched. Skeptics dismissed those stories as exaggeration. But here, under magnification, those memories came alive. Then there were the rods. Official reports said they were balsa wood, part of a high-altitude balloon array. But these weren't balsa. They lacked the porous texture of wood. They didn't splinter. Under light, they gave off a subtle, reflective sheen, like mineral strands woven into a hardened resin. One rod had snapped in the photo, revealing a cross-section. No grain lines, no signs of organic structure. "That's not wood," the conservator said flatly. "That's engineered." The most disturbing discovery was the symbols. Along the edge of one fragment, geometric markings appeared, faint, sharp, deliberate. Not letters, not numbers, but repeating shapes. One resembled a chevron, another a triangle nested within another, too clean to be scratches, too rhythmic to be accidents. The lab ran comparisons. Project Mogul balloon arrays from the 1940s were labeled with English letters. Weather balloon schematics bore plain part numbers. These shapes matched neither, but they did echo something else. Major Marcel's son, Jesse Jr., had once described hieroglyphs, burned into the debris his father brought home. He was a child at the time, but he never forgot the strange, angular patterns. When shown the new scan, he froze. "These are it," he whispered. Skeptics offered counter theories. Maybe it was part of a toy kite. Maybe the shimmer was shellac. Maybe the rods were from a high-altitude weather payload. But every test weakened those claims. Shellac would flake under age. These rods remained smooth. Kite paper would tear. This curled, then returned to shape. No toy company ever etched glyphs onto children's sticks. This was something else. The fragments didn't match any known material from 1947. But they did match the dozens of independent, consistent witness testimonies gathered over decades by people who never met across towns and time. That's what made the photo so damning. If this wreckage had been documented, captured on film, then someone knew, someone saw, and someone somewhere made the decision to hide it. But it was the writing on the photo's edge that truly shattered the illusion. For nearly 2 days, the lab team focused entirely on the image itself, shadows, radios, but it wasn't until late in the second day that someone noticed something easy to miss: tiny pencil strokes along the bottom edge of the print. At first, they looked like smudges handling wear. But underside, lighting and zoom, they resolved into hurried script. 4 words, SAUCRWRIS RAF 1947, the room went completely still. This wasn't a collector's caption scribbled on the back. The graphite had sunk into the paper fibers, consistent with fresh pencil laid shortly after development. Before the emulsion fully hardened, the conservator ran a stylus along the indentations. It had been written at the time of creation. Saucers were the exact term used in the Roswell Army Airfield's original press release, before orders came down from higher command to change the story, before flying disc became weather balloon, and RAAF Roswell Army Airfield, not Fort Worth, not Wright-Patterson. This photo hadn't passed through the filter of headquarters. This was before the rewrite. Some argued the label could have been added later, maybe even by Claire's grandfather, but the handwriting style suggested otherwise. The 7 in 1947 had a military-style crossbar common among clerks of the time. The pressure of the strokes varied in a way consistent with quick field documentation, utilitarian, unembellished. Forensics compared it to declassified Roswell base memos from the same summer. The match in style was undeniable. This wasn't a note from a curious civilian. It was from someone inside the system, someone who had seen enough to know what they were documenting, and wrote it down, perhaps knowing the truth wouldn't survive the official story. Suddenly, an old interview with Walter Haut took on new meaning. Haut had served as the base's public information officer. In his final years, he signed a deathbed affidavit stating that the wreckage shown to the press wasn't the real material. That staged photos were used to conceal the truth. The photo Claire held, and its label, aligned perfectly with his claim. Saucer de Bresse, it read. Not experimental aircraft, not Project Mogul, a saucer. The lab fell silent again. They had been examining a historical relic. Now, they were looking at evidence of a conscious decision. A field tech or officer defying orders, leaving behind one clue before history was rewritten. And the warning didn't stop there. Because while the photo whispered of secrecy, Claire's grandfather had said something else. Something far more chilling.